Kent comes to the game maybe a little bit differently than some other people you might have talked to about psychology in golf. A lot of, I would think, some golf psychologists, almost golfers first, or know the game and coach the game, and then get into psychology second. Kent's definitely the other way around. He was an executive coach for many years and helped companies and people in well, he said about 34 countries around the world. That's how he spent his career. He had his master's in social work. Is that right, Kent? Mm-hmm. Yeah, master's in social work, and then got into, basically, as he put it, helping people tap into their potential. And I thought that was a great way to put it. So he says, his main skill was being able to talk to people and get them to tap into their potential and do their best at whatever they're doing. And then just after his 50th birthday, he took up golf. So he's a latecomer to golf, but got down to a scratch handicap in not a fairly short time, for what most people consider a short time, and actually won a club championship. So he is a golfer, understands the game, but as he says, he hasn't worked with anybody on the pro tours or anything like that. And but I'm going to let him take it away here pretty soon, because I'm just going to talk and not say much. But I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea who Kent is. And he does have a website, scratchattitude.com, and I'll send out the link to that tomorrow when I send out a summary of this webinar. So Kent, I'll let you take it away. Again, okay. Happy to have you, and welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Yeah, thanks guys for letting me share some ideas with you. The theme for tonight is golf and well-being, and as Doug was saying, I'm not a golf psychologist per se. I don't have a stable of PGA or LPGA players, so I'm not going to attempt to tell you what to do. I'm going to share with you some ideas that have worked for me as a player, and they're ideas that have come from my career in coaching. I was a mental health counselor many years ago, and at one point in time, I did the sports psychology role for the Red Wings in the NHL, and then I went on to do a lot of executive coaching. But the main thing is here tonight, I'd like to share some ideas with you on a theme that's very near and dear to my heart. Obviously, I love golf, but I also, this idea of well-being, this idea of helping people, move into their best space, is something that's important to me, and I'd like to share some ideas with you. Now, you would think on the surface that golf would afford us the opportunity to enhance our well-being. I mean, we're playing outdoors, we're playing with friends. The game invites us to be present in the moment. The game invites us to reclaim the joy of play that we enjoyed as children. The game invites us to enjoy our best shots. But in my experience, the relationship between well-being and golf can be very tenuous, and I'd like to give you some examples of that from Golf Digest. The first is a statement from Matt Wolf, who had to take some time off last year because of where he was at emotionally. He said, "I just want to stay in bed and not be in front of anyone and not screw up in front of everyone." Alexi Thompson said, "I've honestly been struggling a lot emotionally, and it's hard because I can't really show it. It was just so much to deal with, and it all hit me coming into this year." Now, I'm a mostly retired guy, and I spend a lot of time on Twitter when I'm not golfing, and I send out some tweets that are hopefully helpful to people, and guys will send me direct messages. And these are some of the things that have come back to me on Twitter from regular golfers. I feel like I'm going to miss before I miss. I worry about choking in a tournament because I often do. I get pissed off at myself a lot. My frustration can bleed into the next shot or the next hole and derail my round. When I don't play well, I beat myself up on the drive home. I'm having a hard time dealing with the fact that I don't play as well as I did years ago. Sometimes I feel like quitting altogether. So you ask yourself, well, why? I mean, with a game that invites us to enhance our well-being, why are so many people, professionals, non-professionals, struggling with anxiety, struggling with frustration when they're playing golf. I mean, in part, as you know, it's a hard game. You know, it's a game where you need to be proactive and not reactive, and reactive will help. Being reactive to someone shooting the puck at you or someone hitting you is going to engage your subconscious mind, which is where your skill set is. But unlike other proactive sports like curling or darts or billiards, you're not able to make consistent eye contact with your target, so that eye-hand coordination thing becomes difficult when you look away from your target. But mostly, I think it's because the brain is naturally wired to focus on negatives. So, and it's an evolutionary thing. I mean, if you think back to, you know, if you can imagine yourself back a half million or a million years ago, and you're coming out of the cave and you're heading to the water hole. Well, if you didn't notice problems, if you didn't notice that this sound was there that wasn't supposed to be there, if you didn't notice that there was something wrong in the surroundings, you exited the gene pool. So we evolved a brain that's very, very good at identifying problems and identifying what's wrong. And so here we are in this game, which is arguably the world's hardest game, where things are going to go wrong almost every round. And it's very, very easy to get myopically focused on that and start to go down, start to slide down the wrong way. So how do you counteract that? How can you approach the game in a way that enhances your well-being, puts frustration and anxiety behind you, and also gives you an opportunity to play your best when it matters most? So what I want to do is I want to share a couple of ideas with you around that, some perspectives that I have that I think are a little bit different and you might find interesting. The first point that I want to make to you is that one of the problems that I see in mainstream golf is that it's perceived as a physical and mental game. And because it's perceived as a physical and mental game, guys tend to see emotions as a subset of their mental game. And they tend to focus predominantly on routines. And I think that's a problem because from my perspective, at every level, the game is physical, mental, and emotional. And I think the best way to enhance your well-being is to approach the game as if these three elements are equal. Because if you think about your mental skills, obviously you need to be able to use your left brain ability to be logical and sort through the factors that are going on and make the right decisions. You need to use your right brain ability to imagine what trajectories that you want, visualize the shot that you intend to make. Your mental game comes in terms of the quality of your self-talk and your focus of your attention when you're over the ball. But when you think about your emotional skills, feeling confident, feeling carefree, feeling good after a good shot, feeling great after a great shot, and feeling calm and unmoved after a bad shot. These are related to your thinking, but they're distinct from your thinking as well. And one of the core things I want to say to you is that you can't routine your way to a better emotional state. You can't routine your way to a better emotional state. And that's what I see a lot of guys trying to do. They get on the golf course, they're in an important round, they find themselves, they become aware that their anxiety or frustration is beginning to take over. And they attempt to ameliorate that by adhering to a routine. What your routines are really around your mental game, and it's good stuff and it'll sharpen your mental game. But if you're someone who feels that, look, if I could deal with my anxiety or if I could deal with my frustration better, I'd enjoy the game more and I'd play the game better when it matters most to me. If that's the case, then what I think is going to be most important for you are rituals, not routines. Routines occur on the golf course, rituals off the golf course. And what I mean by rituals is not that you need to be, off somewhere lighting candles, and all that kind of stuff. What I'm talking about primarily is a way for you to emotionally condition the emotions that you want. In other words, you want to feel confident, you want to feel relaxed, you want to feel carefree, you want to feel good after a good shot, great after a great shot, and neutral after a bad shot. And the way to create that on the golf course is to condition it by some ritual practices off the golf course. So that's key point number one for me. The game is physical, mental, and emotional. Your mental skills come into play in your routines. They're really important. That's typical stuff that you hear from sports psychology around the think box. All those kind of things are necessary and important. And your emotional game is distinct from that. And if you feel a need to improve in that area, you're not going to improve it no matter how sharp your routines get. You're going to improve it off the golf course by practicing some rituals that condition your emotions in the way that you'd like them to be conditioned. Okay. Any questions before I'll talk a little bit about a ritual that you can use to help you on the emotional side?
So again, please feel free to take them in the question and answer or in the chat if you'd like. Or if you want to put up your hand, I can try to unmute you and we could talk directly to us. But Kent, it looks like everybody's either scared of us or
okay,
doesn't have any questions.
Well, could be good. So one of the routines that I strongly recommend is the use of a journal. And how I would recommend that you would use the journal is not to create a diary or not to, log extensive statistics or write an article for Golf Digest. But after every round that you play, you identify your best drive, your best full swing, your best chip, pitch, or bunker shot, and your best putt. And what's key to that is you not just identify, because to some extent it doesn't matter what you write down in terms of how much you write down, but what matters is that you're reconnecting with the feeling of that initial experience. So, yeah. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. So can you see that, Doug? Okay, so that's just...
Yeah, we're all good.
That's just from my journal, some point last year. You can see it's all bullet points. I mean, it's not, the US Open, it's men's night with a couple of my buddies and a couple of, but what I'm doing is identifying shots that are really, really excellent for me. Obviously not great for someone on tour, but excellent shots, excellent moments for me. So when I would, if you look at the top of the page, when I would look at, great drive, number one Valley, beauty 7-iron to 10 feet, I'm just not writing those down in a detached way. Like, for example, Doug, if you and I were playing around together, I could ask you, I could say, hey, Doug, what do you think were my best swings today? And you might say, oh, you hit a great drive on number one, you followed that up with a great iron shot. But you'd be detached from that. You'd be talking to me about it. You'd have no emotional attachment whatsoever to what I was saying to you.
Mhm.
But when I write these down, when I come home at night and I write these down in my journal, and last year I did it on my iPad here. But when I write them down in my journal, I stop, I write it down, I close my eyes, I go back to that moment, and I relive it. I relive the feel, the physical feel, and the emotional feeling, the good feeling. And then the 7-iron, and then the 8-iron, the 9-iron, and, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what's significant about that? Why is that significant? I want you to think about confidence. Every tournament golfer is going to say to himself, you know what? Confidence is key. If I'm feeling confident, I'm going to play really well. Well, let's think about the structure of confidence. Where does confidence come from? I can tell you that it doesn't come from your routines. When you're in the think box and you're looking at your target and you're focused in on what you want, and because you're feeling confident, you're not drawn into dwelling on, oh my God, how am I going to carry that trap? Or, oh my God, I need to avoid that water on the right. When you're feeling confident, you might have done some decision making around how far you need to hit the ball to carry the trap, and I'm going to hit a draw so I'm away from the water. You might do that decision making process, but you're not going to be dwelling on what you don't want. When you're confident, you're really focused on what you do want. And that focus is not confidence. That's the result of confidence. Confidence is an emotion. And confidence comes from how you manage your memories. So again, Doug, if you and I were playing golf together, we go out, we're playing 18 holes. First 9 holes, your putter's on fire. You make 3 or 4 inside 10 feet. You have a couple of 50, 60 footers that you 2-foot gimmies out, great leg putts. You're just making everything that's makeable. You get to the 10th hole, you've got a 5-footer to save par. How are you going to feel over that putt?
Very comfortable.
Very comfortable, very confident. You're not going to be thinking about anything other than what you need to do, the line and the pace to hold this thing. Now imagine, same token, that we're playing another round and your putting is brutal. You've had 3 or 4 chances inside 10 feet. You haven't come close to hitting the hole. You missed one from 2 feet. Every time you had a longer putt, you 3-jacked it. We get to the 10th hole with that same 5-footer to save par. How are you going to feel?
And not so good.
You're going to be thinking about mechanics. You're going to be thinking, how am I going to get? Confidence comes from how you manage your memories. So if you develop the ritual of really, as opposed to what your brain, most brains are naturally going to want to do, I'm driving home from the course no matter what I shot, and I'm going to be thinking about my misses. Shoot 2 under par, and I'm thinking, if it wasn't for that double on 16, I could have been, right? I mean, that's natural. But if you train yourself, if you discipline yourself to condition your mind to focus on the positive emotions, and you relive them and you feel them, what's going to happen after a few weeks or a few months? You're going to deepen your level of confidence in your ability to make shots. Doesn't mean that you're going to absolutely make every shot that you hit, but it does mean that you're going to have less anxiety and more comfort and confidence when you're in the think box.
So Ken, I know when I was a junior, and maybe you get into it, my whole putting round would key on my first 4 to 6 footer that I had. If I made that first 4 to 6 footer, I'd usually have a decent putting round. If I missed it, I wouldn't have a very good putting round. And I grew up at a course where the greens are very difficult and fast. But So let's say I missed that first 6 footer on the second hole.
Yeah.
Do you have techniques to try to get the confidence back? Do you try to key into 6 footers that you've made before? Like, what do you have any advice about that?
Well, yes, and yes, if you've done the conditioning required. Think about your subconscious mind like a Rolodex, right? Like we used to have in the old, like what you go to repeatedly is what's up front in terms of your self-image. So if all that you've done is put emotional intensity into your misses, in other words, you make a 6-footer, you stay relatively flatlined, but you miss that 6-footer and you get this negative emotional blip. If that's what you do habitually, then no routine is going to save your ass in the middle of a round, because you don't have you don't have your memories organized in a way that you can use them.
So I'll just throw this. So the way I got over as a junior, I tried to get confident, and I tried to get, I tried to almost fool myself. So when I was a little bit like 17, 18, I became a decent putter. Every missed putt, I blamed on the green. I blamed it on either the read, or I blamed it on a bump in the green or whatever like that. I know wasn't reality mainly sometimes, but that's how I kept my confidence. Does that make sense at all or not?
Totally. Whatever works. I mean, you'll see a lot of guys on tour, if they'll miss a putt. Bubba Watson's one for this. He'll miss a putt and he'll sort of gesture like this, like how is that possible? Absolutely. Absolutely. The main thing that I'm trying to get across to you guys is that your subconscious mind is always listening. I'm going to play a clip from somebody here. If I can do this.
When you share your screen there, Kent, just make sure that you click off the box that says include audio with this or something like that.
Okay, there's no, all right.
We'll see what happens here.
We'll see what happens here, yeah. Okay, you all know who this guy is.
Yeah, so there's no audio, so you might have to go back.
No audio?
So stop. No, it's okay. Stop to share your screen, and then when you share it this time, just have to click off a little box.
There?
But after years of trading.
No, oh, there you go. Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll play it back from the beginning. This is Mo Norman, for those of you who don't know. Listen to what Mo's talking about here.
I tell it what I'm thinking. I tell it what I see. I tell my little robot all my hopes and fears. It listens and remembers everything it hears. At first, my little robot followed my command, but after years of trading, it's gotten out of hand. It doesn't care what's right or wrong, or what is false or true, but no matter what I try now, it tells me what to do. Right there. It tells me what to do.
You know, Kent, I had the pleasure of knowing Mo Norman fairly well.
Okay.
Spent a lot of time with him in Florida at Royal Oak in Titusville.
That'd be cool.
And we would be on the range, and he'd be hitting 4 irons or whatever, and he would miss one. But when he missed one, he wouldn't watch it, and it was like it never happened. And it was actually amazing to watch. It's amazing to watch him forget that within 3 seconds. It was gone.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, he was gone, I think, before I get into the game, but it'd be someone that I would like to see. The point of the matter being that the strong point that I'm trying to make to guys is that the emotions are distinct from your thoughts, and your emotions are distinct. If you want to have more empowering emotions on the golf course, you've got to condition them off the golf course. Your routines are primarily mental. Your routines are not going to change your emotional state. They'll ameliorate them a little bit. If you're anxious, you can do some deep breathing, and you can go from being, 8 out of 10 anxious to being 6 out of 10 anxious. But if you really want to change your emotional state, if you want to have more of what we'd associate with well-being, more confidence, feeling more carefree, being able to enjoy your best moments. If you want more in that, from my experience, it needs to be conditioned off the golf course. You don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. But if you can get into the habit, for example, of taking 5 minutes after a round, identifying your best moments, reliving them, reconnecting with them. Over time, that will condition your mind to do two things. One, to pay more attention to your best moments. And two, it will condition your mind to automatically be more confident in those moments. Let me, since I'm trying to go technical here, let me try to share one more with you, if I can.
Always like to do, and I like to pick out and I've always done it, my dad used to make me do it when I was a kid, pick out your 3 best shots of the day and sort of leave the day with that, and then you can leave your golf behind, but that's always a nice thing to do at the end.
So regardless of how you played, you'll pick 3 of your best shots.
The 3 best ones, yeah, and try and, you know, remember them. Those are the ones that'll make you smile and bring you back.
I think that's a nice way to finish it.
Okay, so I'm not trying to suggest that, you know, I keep a journal, and it doesn't mean that I've been, by doing that, I've been able to, you know, hit the ball like Tommy Fleetwood. But it does mean that it's, you know, if you do that practice, it'll pay some benefits for you, for sure. Especially if you feel you're a tournament player, which all you guys listening are. If you feel that that's an area that you need to improve, the way you improve it is off the golf course. Stick with your routines. They help you on the mental side of it, absolutely. But emotionally, off the course.
So one point in my career, I had what I'll say is the driver yips.
Okay.
And I'd stand behind the ball I'd never been good at visualizing my shots, but I just try to picture hitting a good shot. I'm more of a kinesthetic feel person. So I'd even try to take a practice swing and then, you know, try to feel a swing that would produce a shot that would hit the fairway. And I couldn't do it. At one point in my career, I just could not picture or feel the shot going anywhere near the fairway.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting from you that might have been more emotional than anything else.
Yeah. Well, your emotions, I mean, think about it as thoughts, emotions, and then your subconscious beliefs, patterns. I mean, with the yips, yes, I would say you're not going to routine your way out of the yips. It's rooted in emotions, rooted somewhere in there around beliefs and rules. So, yeah. And, you know, the cure for the yips, you know, I helped a guy last year, and, you know, it's really an individual thing. I mean, I don't think there's, at least from my point of view, I wouldn't give a generic blanket, oh, do this and, you know, the yips will go away. But you know, I would think that it would be, the fix would be rooted in emotions and rooted in you know, some work that you need to do off the course.
So you've got the journaling off the course, trying to remember and actually put yourself into that feeling and everything that happened with those good shots.
That's the key, the feeling.
The feeling.
The feeling is the key. It doesn't matter what you write down. You can write down just one bullet, one word. But the key is to make a reconnect with your emotions.
Okay.
That's yeah. Now, the second thing I wanted to share with you guys, if I may, I wanted to talk about again with the theme of well-being, the theme of, you know, you're a tournament player, so the question is, okay, how do I decrease my stress? How do I increase my enjoyment? And potentially by doing that, play my best golf more often. So for a tournament player, one of the things I think is really vitally important is how you set your goals. From my point of view, you need to set your goals in a way that are aligned with your temperament. So let me explain that a little bit, if I can. you've heard the terms introvert and extrovert. So an introvert, like me, is someone who gains energy by being alone. So if I go to a party or if I'm in a social situation, then I can have a nice time, but it's very draining for me personally. So I need to recharge my batteries by being by myself. If you're an extrovert, it's the opposite. You get energy from being in a group, from being at a party, from being in a social gathering, and you're gonna lose energy by being alone. Now, I would see that there are there's another category that I think is very relevant for athletes and especially relevant for golfers. I'm going to call this category, as opposed to introvert and extrovert, I'm going to call it pure player and pure performer. Okay? A pure performer is somebody who, under extreme pressure, tends to put their energy outward. And it's literally as if the world out there becomes crisper and cleaner and more in focus. And if you're a pure performer, you spend little or none of your energy is caught up in what you're thinking, what you're feeling, or tactilely, how your hands feel, how their body feels. An example of a pure performer, obviously, is Jack. Another example is Brooks Koepka. I mean, under pressure, things get real clear and real focused for them. Now, if you're a pure player on the other side of the coin, if you're a pure player under pressure, your awareness goes inward. It's like the world out there is going to start to become a little bit fuzzier, and you're just going to start to become hyper aware of what you're thinking, of your thoughts, hyper aware of your emotions, hyper aware. You're going to start to feel your hands, perhaps, in a way that you wouldn't normally feel them. Hyper aware how your body feels. And so a pure performer, from my perspective, Sergio Garcia would be one. If you think about his, if you go back and Google his interviews after he won the Masters, all he talked about was somehow he felt comfortable that week. Greg Norman would be another pure performer. Hell of a golfer, obviously, but in extreme pressure situations, clarity out there would start to dissipate, and he would start to focus start to be hyper aware of what's going on inside for him. Now, from a goal setting point of view, what does this mean? Well, one of the problems that I see is guys who are on the performer side setting process goals, and guys who are on the player side setting targets. Big problems. You want to set goals that are congruent with your personality, in the same way that it wouldn't be good for me to take a salesperson's job. I wouldn't be good at it, wouldn't enjoy it. But coaching, perfect. I get to sit down one-to-one and talk and have conversations with people. So if you're more on the performer side of things, you want to set your goals around your majors for the season. You think about Brooks Koepka, how he'll talk. He'll say he doesn't even care about regular tour events for the most part. I mean, he's all about those major events. That's where he wants to play well. Everything is leading up to that. And if you're on that side of the scale, then it will be very congruent and natural for you to do that. And you can have sub goals around, your greens in regulation and your putts per round and those smart goals. And you'd want to have little or almost no process goals. Whereas if you're on the other side of the ledger, if you're someone who under pressure tends to go inward and tends to become hyper aware of what's going on in here, the absolute worst thing you can do for yourself is say, I want to win the BC Senior Championship this year. I'm going to target that event. That's just putting more pressure on yourself, and that doesn't work for you. What I would recommend for a player like that is they would set a process goal. In other words, they would identify whatever aspect of the process they need to do better, whether it's, make sounder decisions or commit fully to the swing, or, whatever aspect of the process they want to focus on. But my recommendation there would be that they would see the season as just a long continuation. In other words, it's just another round, another hole, another shot. And my goal is to, for example, if it's, I want to make an aggressive swing to a conservative target, I want to fully commit to my swing, that's my process goal. Well, it doesn't matter what the event is, whether I'm, playing a practice round, whether I'm playing a tournament round, whether I'm playing a Nassau with my buddies, that's my focus. Just another swing. And you'll hear guys on the PGA Tour, for example, and I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this, I don't know Rory McIlroy personally, but you hear when a guy like that, who to me is more naturally on the performer side of things, when you hear him talking about getting more process oriented and just it's one swing and one, I think he's hurting himself, not helping himself. I mean, it's really not for me to say, but the point of the matter is that you want to have an understanding of who you are. The same way with your routines, you talked about that you're more of a kinesthetic guy. Well, when you're in the think box, you want to create a routine for yourself that's aligned with how you process information from a thinking point of view. You want to set your goals from a temperamental point of view too, in terms of how you're wired on that scale. A lot of guys are going to be in the middle, and they need some process, and they need some smart goal targeting. But that's basically the two primary points that I wanted to make tonight.
So I've had I've taught the game quite a bit, Kent, and I've had lots of students, and I hardly ever recommend outcome goals. I'm a very, and because personally I'm a very process goal kind of guy. I'm a what you would call a player.
Okay.
So I'm learning that maybe that's not a great idea. So how would I, if I've got a student or if somebody wants to try to identify this for themselves, how would they kind of know, what kind of things can they look for to know whether they're performance or a, sorry, you said performer or a player?
Performer, player. Those are just the labels I put on it.
Right. So how would they know, or can they do a little test themselves, or just think about it, or how would they know?
Well, if they're sitting down if you were coaching the kid, they were sitting down with you, I would say, look, tell me about your experience the last time you were under pressure. And it's not about whether you played well or whether you didn't play well. It's about what's going on for you. Do things get clearer out there? Do you tend to get more target focused? If that's the case, then you're a performer, and you'll be more aligned. You'll be more aligned with setting goals to specifically win this tournament. And if you're doing some ritual off the golf course, that kind of kid would get something. You see yourself holding the trophy. You see yourself winning the tournament. But if you're a pure process guy, that's just going to put pressure on you. So the main question is, how do you experience it when you're under pressure? Pure performer, clear out there. Pure player starts to get really focused on what's happening in here. And a lot of guys are going to be kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And that determines what kind of goals that you set. Because go ahead.
I'm just trying to think of students I've had that, because like for me as being on the performer side, I go internal when under pressure.
You're on the performer or the player side?
Sorry, so I go internal, not external. Things get fuzzy for me. I don't. Yeah. So that's the.
Yes, you're on the player side.
On the player side.
Yeah.
Sorry, just trying to get my thoughts together here. So it's interesting because I can tell you how I felt over that shot. I can tell you the number I had. I had 153, and I hit an 8-iron, but I thought I had a little flyer, so I choked on it a little bit, and
Yeah.
I can tell you how I felt, and I can tell you that my swing was a little shorter than it should have been. I can tell you all that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm assuming a performer maybe wouldn't be able to have that.
He's going to
amount
be,
of detail.
he's going to be more detail on what's out there,
Right.
you know?
Okay. Interesting. I'm just trying to think of how to
Yeah.
differentiate the two for the people that are listening, how they can kind
And
of
again,
figure
the
out
point of the
themselves.
matter is both can be great golfers.
Right.
The point is when you don't want to set a goal that's going to add stress to your system. You don't want to set a goal that's going to make a hard game even harder. You want to set a goal that's aligned with who you are. In the same way that if you're thinking about how you function in the think box, well, Tiger, I'll give you, if we have the time, I'll play a little clip from Tiger. If we can shift over into the mental routine now more. Let's see if I can find this clip from Mr. Woods. Okay.
So right now I'm feeling 88. I'm gonna flight it, so I'm gonna probably hit it about 84. With it being a back pin, kind of scoot it back there. So I'm trying to.
Okay, watch. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, watch his left hand. Listen to how many times he says feel.
Feel speed in my hands and my arms and keep that ball down. I'll cut off the fall through a little bit short so I can make it sure I penetrate it. But again, I'm connecting everything with my hands and my feels to try and get that loft off of it. I accomplished all that by hitting thousands of golf balls and building a feel for how far I hit the golf ball. But I'll make adjustments based on whether it's hot and humid or it's cold and damp or it's windy. I'll make those slight adjustments, but I'm making those adjustments behind the golf ball. My father taught me that it's the closest hand you should feel it with is your right hand. Obviously, it's closest to the club face. And so I'll get a lot of my feel in my right hand. And I'm trying to get a sense of how I should play it, how feel-wise. And I really get connected to that. And once I get that feel and once I get that sense of how I'm going to play the golf shot, I commit and I just go. I'm aiming a little bit right.
Okay. You heard how many times he said feel. Feel, feel, feel. So I'm gonna grab something else here. Just give me 1 second. So here's Jack talking about his pre-shot routine, another pretty good player. I never hit a shot even in practice without having a very sharp, in-focus picture of it in my head. It's like a color movie. First, I see the ball where I want it to finish nice and white and sitting up high in the bright green grass. Then the scene quickly changes and I see the ball going there, its path, trajectory, and shape, even its behavior on landing. Then there's sort of a fade out and the next scene shows me making the kind of swing and blah, blah, blah. So these are subtle differences, but when Tiger obviously is 80% feel, 20% picture. Jack, if you could take that thing from his book, Golf My Way, is pretty much 100% picture. You're going to get other guys that can't do either of those, and they're going to really do well with self-talk. They're going to really do well with self-coaching, literally talking themselves through it, because they really don't connect with the feel and they really don't make pictures that well. So the point in your both in your routine and in your ritual is if the better you are at golf, the more you're an elite player, the more you're coaching elite players, the more you want to help them make subtle micro adjustments that are aligned with their natural way of processing information. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm hoping people in the call are kind of trying to think to themselves if they're more visual and they can more like Jack really see things, or if they feel it, or if they're auditory. Some people, more through sound. And so, yeah, I was hoping that people are kind of thinking through that. Again, any questions, throw him at Kent. I think he really likes some questions here. I know it's tough in these formats sometimes. I know it's tough for Kent too, as he's talking to a screen and not really getting any feedback. So it's tough sometimes to know what's going on. Got a couple of people making good comments that, about what you're saying, Kent, for sure, just so you know. One of my friends says that his group identified that we as golfers are pretty hard on ourselves. So after every round, we ask, what was your best shot today? It has taken a while, but now we all have an answer, which is good. Hopefully you can have an answer. But that's interesting. I, when I'm a tournament director at junior tournaments and I am talking to a junior, I'll say, tell me about your best shot today. And some of them will, and some of them won't come up with an answer. And I'll stand there and kind of almost try to force them. But it's interesting that they have trouble doing that for some reason. So we have the kind of question: how do you determine the type of person you are? Feel, visual, talk it through. Do you have any advice on how they can figure out where they fall?
Yeah. If the group wants to go through it with me now, if I was sitting down one-to-one with a guy, I'd be watching his responses. But the question I'd be asking would be, okay, take me back to the last round of golf that you played. What do you remember from that round the most? What stands out in your mind as a memory for you? Take me right into a shot. What do you remember happening? How did you approach it? And from those answers, I'd be hearing guys talk about what they saw or what they felt or what they said to themselves. So if you explore your memories a little bit, you'll notice what you're like. Like me, for example, I'm very strong auditorily, but I don't make pictures in my head that easily. So for me, it's more, and again, the theme of this whole talk is not, golf psychology per se, it's golf and well-being. So if I read a book about getting in the think box, or I read Jack Nicklaus's book and I think, hey, I got to make pictures in the think box, right? That's what good players do. Well, I don't naturally do that. So that's going to add a layer of stress for me to try to create these pictures, as opposed to understanding that, well, some players, if I was talking to 20 tour players here, I'm sure we'd find some that function well just by coaching themselves through a shot, by saying to themselves, okay, you need to hit a high draw here, and you need to, this is your target, and et cetera, et cetera. Did that help, or?
I think so.
Okay, good.
We've got a question. Just what is your definition of the difference between routine and ritual?
Okay. Fundamentally, a routine is something that happens for golf purposes. A routine is something that you do on the golf course during a round of golf. A ritual is something that you do off the golf course. A routine is designed to sharpen your mental focus, to use your left brain logic and your right brain ability to be imaginative in a way that enhances your game. A ritual is designed to condition the emotions that you want. Not that you can control them, but the more that you connect with those positive feelings, the more those positive feelings are likely to arrive for you as just part of who you are. Okay?
Okay.
So on the course, off the course, mental, emotional.
I can maybe answer this one a little bit. Just for those people that are out there, Think Box and Play Box comes, I think, first from Vision 54, who's Pia Nielsen and Lynn Marriott. And what they talk about is Think Box is behind the ball, going through usually a routine of some sort, picking a target, picking a club, picturing what kind of shot you're going to hit, what Tiger was doing there when he was talking about feel. And then Play Box is, for them, you kind of step over an imaginary line and you go ahead and set up to the ball, and now you're not thinking anymore. You're in your play box. Mm-hmm. And the question I've got here is, do you have any advice for what to think about in your play box?
Well, I would say that's where on the mental side, it's about where you want to put your focus of attention. and I'm just going to make a generalization here. I mean, generally speaking, I would think your focus of attention is going to be better on where your club head is in space, or your club path, or where you actually want to strike the ball or start the ball, than it is in your body. And you're a golf coach, Doug. I'm not. But
Yeah,
that
we usually say an external focus is better than much better playing golf. And by external focus, we mean something outside of your body.
Yeah. Now, guys obviously get a lot of value from swing thoughts, and because I'm auditory, I can get value from swing thoughts as well. As long as those swing thoughts don't connect with me trying to move my body in a certain way. Once that happens, I think you're done in terms of making your best swing. I mean, if you think about the zone, you think about when we're absolutely playing our best, truth is you're not really thinking at all. Yeah. And that's where in one of my rituals, because when I started playing golf, I realized, obviously, look, I'm not going to get good at this. I'm not going to get professional at this game. I'm not going to be able to be a pro, a teaching pro. This is my recreation. So I decided that I would focus on make my aim to just enjoy the experience of hitting the golf ball. And so that's my why. I'm not there to post a score. I'm not there to make a living, leave a legacy. Someone like you, Doug's been around the game all your life. You're going to watch me hit the golf ball, and you're going to say to yourself, "Oh, that's kind of a homegrown, whatever." So that's just the way it is. So why am I there? I'm there to enjoy that experience. Hey, you know what? If I happen to play well and I happen to win a tournament, that's all gravy. So what I will do before rounds often is I will imagine myself enjoying the shot. That's it. So I'm conditioning my mind to put my focus on that feel and feeling of just striking it pure.
So that kind of leads into a question. My next question here from somebody was, for those that meditate, do you think meditation plays a role prior to a competitive round, or do you think it might be better after the game to regard your ritual, your ritual concept?
Okay, well, I would say meditation is something that will really benefit you. If you're talking about mindfulness meditation, will really benefit you between shots. Because if you get into mindfulness meditation, you will get to the point where there's a certain detachment, and you'll be able to experience, your thoughts and emotions almost like you're a detached observer. And so, very, very powerful thing to be able to do between shots. You might have, if you watch the PGA list issued at Phil won. You might have seen him it looked to be very consciously, closed mouth, slow breathing, probably taking onto the course between shots what he was doing, what he's doing is meditation. So as a practice, would I recommend it for golf? Absolutely. However, it's not exactly what you want to have in the shot bubble. From my point of view, what you want to do in the shot bubble is you don't want to be detached from emotions. You want to condition positive emotions. In between shots, it's great because when you're in a tournament round, as you guys well know, all kinds of shit's going to come up in your head, like 3 more pars and I can win this thing, or and none of that's helpful or useful. And if you can stand back from that and just let it go, that's fantastic. But when you're in that shot bubble, you don't want to be detached from everything. You want to be attached to, I feel confident, I feel relaxed, I feel loose, I've got the right feel, like if that's your thing, like Tiger was talking about. He's not wanting to be, detached and, from everything in that shot bubble space. So if I was talking to a guy who was a serious player, and he said to me, look, what would you be doing for rituals? I just helped a guy with this a week or so ago. I would be doing a mindfulness piece for 5 or 10 minutes. And then I would be doing an emotional conditioning piece for 5 or 10 minutes relative to his unique personality. And that would be, I think that would be great practices, because you need both.
Yeah. Got a question here. If you're a visual, auditory, kinesthetic mixture, what triggers can you look for to help understand your current mode? I'm not an expert in that at all. I don't know if you know if you know what he's talking about there or not.
Yeah, I think I know what he's talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, if I was actually working with the guy, I'd be watching his eye patterns, and I could sort out how he would do that. But to do it on your own, I think what would be most important would be the sequencing, not the amounts. So that's what I would be looking for if me and this guy were talking when he was asking me that question. I would be wanting to figure out, okay, what's first, what's second, what's third. That's the key.
Okay. Let's try to get a couple questions here.
Sure.
What routine or strategies would you suggest when a situation arises on the course where anxiety arises despite your ritual conditioning off the course? So basically you're doing the work off the course so you can, but then, you get in a situation where the anxiety still comes, you can feel anxiety coming up in you.
Sure. Well, I would say that, just to be blunt, if that's really coming up like that, then you're not you're not doing enough stuff off the course, or you're doing stuff that's maybe wrong is not the right word, but you're not maximizing the effectiveness of your emotional conditioning off the golf course, and you're probably doing something that is misaligned with you. But in my case, for example, and I mean, I'd have to be, talking with this guy individually, but in my case, if I start to feel any little, disturbance in the force, I have a go-to question, which is, why am I paying to play today? Now, again, I'm not a professional player, so, any situation that I'm in, I'm paying. At the end of the day, I pay or I don't get on a golf course. So I have a go-to question for me, and that is, you can ask, why am I here? Why am I paying? But again, that's relative to the work that I've done. I regularly connect with why I'm on the golf course. Off the course, I regularly make an emotional connection to why I'm there. I'm there to experience how great it feels to hit it solid. I'm not there with the false assumption that I'm going to be, the Canadian senior champ or whatever, So
the gentleman that asked the question, it could be the Canadian senior champ.
Oh, well, hey, yeah. So, I mean, I would need to sit down with him and figure out, what he's doing. But I would say chances are he's doing if he is doing some off-course emotional conditioning, that he's not doing it in a way that's exactly aligned with who he is. And if he can find a trigger question, if I can find a way to get him to link back to that emotional conditioning he's done, then that's the best you can do, I think. I don't think you can routine it away. So just by, doing a better job and, with a pre-shot visualization or something like that, it's not going to be enough for him. I'm not sure if that helped or not, but
Hey, it's what we can do, right?
yeah.
Have you done any work or looked into heart rate variability?
Looked into,
Heart
Yeah.
rate variability.
yeah, I
HRV.
know a little bit about the whole coherence thing. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's maybe a question for another time, but
sure.
if you're listening out there, there is some studies on heart rate variability and breathing rates and getting into coherence and that
Mhm.
helping in a competitive situation or helping with anxiety. But
Yeah,
not
and
really.
again, yeah,
Yeah.
again, magic between shots.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a thing here from a guy who lost his chipping feel, and he said basically the only way he got over it was a bunch of repetition.
Mhm.
That in his words drilled it back into his mind. Would you say that the repetition was all that he did, or do you think he changed his confidence by doing that, and that changed his emotional side also? Or I don't know if there's an answer to that or not.
I don't know either. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's whatever works, and there's no doubt that there's no doubt your thoughts that can influence your emotions. My experience is that your emotions are more primal. They come from a level of the mind that's deeper, and your emotions tend to run the show. However, can you do a shift in your thinking or a shift in your skill building and impact your emotions going the other way? Absolutely.
All right, we'll get one more, and then we'll let you go, because
Sure.
it is 11 o'clock his time. He's in Ontario. So we talked about the a players and a player and a performer. If you're a player, can you get some examples of goals and process, or I guess process goals for that
Yeah.
player?
Okay. Well. For example, my goal is to fully commit to every swing. My goal is to be playful when it's my turn to play. My goal is to make a sound decision before I step into the think box, to use that terminology, and make a shot. My goal is to be neutral after every bad shot, to feel good after every good shot, to feel great after every great shot. And the key would be that I'm evaluating after my round. I'm evaluating myself on a shot by shot, hole by hole basis. It's almost like I've got a string of holes for the season, and I'm playing this long string of holes, and I want to play each of these holes with the same emotional intensity and the same mental focus as much as I can. And so there's no, oh, I'm like this with the boys, and then suddenly I've got a qualifier, and then I've got a big tournament. That's for the performer guys. They love that stuff. They excel in that stuff.
So I'll just say, because I'm heavily on the player side, so I evaluate my rounds on a different thing than score. I evaluate them on decision making sometimes, or
Yep.
did I prepare for the shot properly? And I'll actually say, okay, I had 30 full shots out there today. How many of them did I do what my goal was, my process goal was?
Yeah.
If my process goal is, maybe it can be simple as smiling before I hit the shot for me.
Yeah.
And so I can evaluate my round that way. So that's what we mean by a process goal, as
Yes.
opposed to a performance
Yes.
goal. Yeah.
Perfect for you. A guy like Brooks Koepka, absolutely drive him nuts. He wouldn't, by the ninth hole, he'd abandon it completely.
Yeah. All right, Ken, I'm sure we could talk to you all night, but I do want to sum this up. So really want to appreciate everybody on the line, and do appreciate you getting some questions in here at the end. And I'm sure Kent does too. Really appreciate your time, Kent. I'll be talking to you a little bit, and we'll send out a little summary and with some information about Kent in an email tomorrow. Other than that, I think we'll let you go and have a glass of wine and get to bed.
Okay, well, thanks, Doug, and thanks to all you guys for listening. And I hope some of these, I really hope some of these insights were some good food for thought for you.
Yeah. So everyone on the line next.
Have fun. Play well.
Thank you very much, Kent.
thank
Next
you.
Wednesday, we got Ann Holmes on the line going over some fitness for our age group, and how to stay fit. So hopefully we'll see you then. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Yeah. Bye, Doug.